Hey everyone, it's Kenlyn and welcome back to my channel. This is election week in the United States. And if only one thing I'm happy about, and that is that this is going to be over. There's so much existential angst and anxiety and tension and power struggles in the field. And that's also because of the astrology, and it's playing out in the collective in the form of our politics, as well as many places around the globe. So this week is a reminder of a couple things that we're going to touch on in this transmission, and that is the power of neutrality. And it may not be what you think. I was taught some things in yoga that I'm going to clarify, let's say. And then there's the other piece of this new feminine leadership. And I think that's what's really important for us as collective divine feminine leaders. Like, where are we going with this? What are we bringing to the table? And one of the things I assert is the ability to cross the aisle. And I'm going to tell you what I mean about that in a moment. So this is a big week. If you're feeling anxiety, if you're feeling fear come up, it's an epic time to work on it, because we're also in the Samhain portal. We're in the new moon. We're in the darkness. We're going inward. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But here's the call to action. If you are feeling it, just know that it's a time to do your deeper healing work. We have Jupiter working with Chiron. So these healing things that we're doing are going to actually work. We're going to see the fruits of them. So I want to say that inside the membership, once a month, we do parts work. Parts work is essential. It's called Activate Your Inner Healer. So if you're a member, this is free for you. It's led by a trauma therapist. She's awesome, holds space beautifully. Her name is Claire. And it's a really safe space to go inward and start working with the parts of you, the voices of you, the ones that are fearful, the ones that don't like change, the ones that think that things are bad are going to happen, the ones that don't trust. Parts work is essential for the new feminine leader. It's essential for every person. But here we are together talking about this and ways that we can move forward powerfully by being the change, being the leaders just through our embodiment. We don't have to run for office. Let me assure you, just in who we be, we can be this new feminine leader. All right, so let's presence a little bit of the astrology before I get into those 2 points. We know the sun is in Scorpio. We've just had a new moon on the 1st of November, and by the 3rd of November, the moon's moving out, and yet we are still in the frequency of the new moon, and we will be in that frequency through the election. So that means that our conscious awareness is darkened. It's not lit up by the light of the sun. It's darkened. And that's a time of going inward. So interesting. This is where we find ourselves, and we can deal with it. We have Venus and Sag. I think she's been helping us out because she's a fire sign, not letting us get too lost in our emotions, too lost down the rabbit hole. She's like ready for some adventure, and she's kind of up for it. So we can take that on. And then we've got Mars moving into Leo on the 3rd of November, and Mars will be in its pre-retrograde shadow. So that's a good time to pay attention to how is this showing up, because Mars is going to go retrograde. And they say that in that pre-retrograde shadow, we can see maybe a foreshadowing of what might be happening. I don't know. Are you moving? Are you changing jobs? I don't know. Just pay attention to what the shifts and changes are in your life. There's also a great warning about getting more triggered. I mean, we've been talking about this with Mars in Cancer. We also have the Mars-Pluto opposition, power struggles, and divisiveness. And we've already seen that. And it can come, Mars is a personal planet, so it can affect me and you, and we can get more triggered. And so stay tuned as I speak about neutral and how we can work with being neutral as a way to disarm the trigger. Also, parts work is a super good way of disarming the trigger, because again, we're not here to override. We're here to get curious about what's underneath, and that's parts work. Okay, let's see. The other thing is Venus is trining Chiron, which I think that's going to mean some good things for our healing, all of our healing work that we're doing. And Mercury's in Sag, Jupiter's retrograde in Gemini, and we know that Pluto is direct in Capricorn and moving out of Capricorn. So slowly moving these last few weeks out of Capricorn and into Aquarius on the 19th of November, really signaling the beginning of this new world. And that's part of why we have so much angst happening. Because not only is there an election, and in the US, it's really 50-50. It's really neck and neck. There really are deep power struggles. There's deep, I was going to say, like narrative warfare. Both sides are creating narratives of doom and gloom about the other side. And it takes a lot to keep yourself centered and your nervous system from not being triggered, because no matter what issue it is, it's going to be some issue, right? Something is important to you. Something is tender for you. And when you hear it, there's a sense of being triggered. So we're going to go into that in a second. I'm going to say that on election day, the 5th of November in the US, and if you're not in the US and you're listening, just send us lots of prayers. We know that we may not, let's hold space that we can move through this gracefully. We know that 50% of the people are not going to be happy no matter what it is. And so that's why the teaching that's coming up is going to be really important, how we can cross the aisle. So on election day, Mercury is trining the North Node. I think that's a good sign. We're going to feel personally like by that point, those couple of days that we're really on target. We're really on our path. So if you've been spinning out, just know that there's going to be some time when you're feeling like you're really on your path. Now, these are transits. They come and they go, and they're usually not long transits. So let's just enjoy that moment when we're here. That's going to be on the election day. We still have Mars opposing Pluto and those power struggles. We still have all that Mars in retrograde shadow in Leo. So we've got these tensions running high, the ability to take things personally, to get triggered, to get pissed off, to say something. So we get to manage that. Sun is trining Saturn on election day. And so I think that that's going to be good for our sense of being in control of our own destiny. Like we have the power to organize ourselves, right? There's so much we don't have control over, but we're going to feel this sense of, yeah, but in my life, I know what's mine to do and I'm going to do it. And I love that sense of empowerment, because Saturn is the teacher and responsibility, and the ways that we can work with that Lord, then we will prosper. So I think that day is going to be a good day for tying up loose ends and also creating a plan. And this is going to go into this sense of how the world is speeding up and opportunities are exploding. We are in the creator economy after all, and opportunities are exploding. So it's up to you to determine, and this is the Sun and Saturn working together, like your dharma, your purpose. What are the things that are yours to do? And by now, doors are closing, and we get to let them close. And maybe we have some opinion about that, and we feel sad about that. At the same time, new doors will open because we are constantly changing and evolving. I can feel that, and I can feel sad about things that are closing out. And I've mentioned that before with like Kundalini yoga, being a teacher. And then now I'm not a teacher. I don't even practice it for reasons that I've spoke about. I think I need another video on this actually, because this is the close out of my own Pluto in Capricorn. And that has to do in the 9th house with the teachers and the gurus and the religion and the philosophy and the spirituality. And so this is my closeout, and there's sadness. And there's also this sense of, okay, that's what it is. It is what it is. I can be sad about it. Okay. And I get to move on. So that's there too. I think Jupiter sextiling Chiron is that there is hope that the healing work that we're doing is going to pay off. So I'm presencing some positive things in the next couple of days that you can just orient yourself forward no matter what happens. So let's go to the 2 things that are super important to remember. And if I make other videos, if I think of other things, I'll make other videos. But these two things to me seem the most important for this week. And the number one thing is neutrality. Now, I was taught so much, like the upper triangle, the lower triangle in yoga, the upper three chakras, the lower three, they're united in the heart. The heart is the neutral place, the neutral chakra that mitigates this lower instinctual nature and the upper, more etheric, spiritual energies. Okay, that's great. I like that. I like the heart center being that place of neutrality. And we know as feminine bodies, we've been reclaiming our embodiment, that we move this energy of emotion through our bodies, grief, rage. Those are completely appropriate energies to run through your body and move out. Now, where we get not neutral is when we start creating thought forms, projections, opinions, and projecting them out. That's where that non-neutral mind can really screw us up. That's where we get triggered. That's where we start blaming other people. That's when we make up stories, which usually begin with you, right? And all of this is messy. So let's presence that it's messy. We're not going to be perfect in this, and we don't need to be perfect. In fact, in my life now, I really don't require the people that are around me or myself to be perfect. What I do ask for of myself and others is that we quickly own it when we project out. When we say something that is nasty or mean or rude, you know what? You're right. I'm sorry. And we just move on, because we can then make some repair if we acknowledge that we were triggered and that we did and said that thing out of that trigger. To make excuses for it, to be a victim about it, are things of the past that we are closing the door on. Those are just not things that we can carry forward as new feminine leaders. But if we feel that way, then we need to do the parts work on the inside to really excavate what are the wounded voices inside and how can we tend to them. Because the truth is, you can't fake neutral. That's the thing I want to say. I don't know that I was ever taught that in yoga, but I want to be clear and say you can't fake neutral. You are where you are. And if you are in a triggered state, you're dysregulated, that is nervous system work. That is parts work. To get to the root of what story you're carrying so that you can come to neutral. I have a story about that I'll share in a second, but one of my friends reminded me about the Bhagavad Gita. He wrote the book about Amare, the new wave of love in business. And he said, the Bhagavad Gita is a sacred text in India that's like 3,000 years old. And this conversation between Krishna and Arjuna needing to go into battle, and Krishna, supporting him to step up to his dharma. So Krishna says, be the same both in victory and in defeat. This is a good line for us. Write this down. Be the same in victory and in deceit. I remember Gangaji being asked by Papaji, her teacher, if someone said really something amazing to you, how would you react? If someone said something really nasty to you, how would you react? And she said, I would react the same. And what I love about that, our brains are wired differently, by the way, and that's okay that they're wired differently. It's also being the witness of what's going on. So I don't say always be neutral. I say get to neutral. So when I'm triggered and I'm happy or sad and I notice like, oh, that person texted me back, I'm happy. I even work with that. Because what is that? Expectation. And what happens in expectation? Well, sometimes they're not met, or sometimes what's happening is I'm projecting that this person, like say it's a dating situation, and I'm projecting on this person that they are something that they have not yet revealed. Because in relationships that are long-term and solid, these people they are not either high or low. They're just like, yep, magic in the middle. They know the dark side of their partner, they know the light side of their partner. And there's an equipoise. Let's call it that. There's an equipoise. So whenever we get too excited and up here, we're probably making up a delusional story and projecting. Whenever we get triggered and we're down here, we're also projecting. So it's our job to get to neutral. And this is like, look at that, like right to get to equipoise, And so sometimes I say to myself, yeah, could be nice, So there's a part of me holding space for neutral while there's another part of me that might be excited. But the greater part of me is witnessing what's going on. And that's what's more important than the whole thing. It's not trying to achieve an outer level of something. It's inwardly, how am I with all of it? Because remember, like sometimes that person that you got a divorce from, at one point in your life, you thought they were the best thing ever. Like you called your friend and you were like, oh my God, no, he's not like the rest. She's not like the rest. And the truth is, at some point you discovered, oh shit, they are like the rest. Because who's the common denominator? You. So when we're in that equipoise, we have the ability to evaluate information in a more clear-headed way. So the other day I took some action. I'm going to tell just a very quick, short story about this, and we'll move to the second point. And this actually is a bridge to the second point of new leadership and crossing the aisle. So I took some action the other day on reaching out to a wildlife biologist. This is probably not anything you're going to expect me to say. I reached out to a wildlife biologist in Wyoming. I had his number from 2 years ago when I tracked him down. I didn't track him specifically down, but I wanted to talk to a human being who understood what was going on in the wolf world in certain states of the US, because I was hearing a bunch of slaughter and murder, and I wanted to know what was going on. I was getting highly triggered. Earlier this year, there were some events that happened that were gut-wrenching. And I got an email reminding me of that gut-wrenching event. This is how the email marketing machine works. Nonprofits and others, like everybody's doing this game. So I decided, you know what? I'm not going to sit here and be triggered. I'm not going to sit here and stuff my anger. I am going to make a phone call. So I reached out, and weirdly enough, the guy remembered me. We have a similar name. So he remembered me, and we spent an hour on the phone. And at the end of it, we both were like, thank you so much for this conversation. He met me in empathy for that event. He gave me insider information, which I was seeking, that really helped me be more optimistic. And then he explained the landscape of what's been going on in a way that I could understand. It was very data driven and it felt neutral, but he didn't feel like it lacked any empathy or it lacked any care. In fact, it felt like the data was actually letting them find the way to care the most for everyone. And so I felt like we had a really rich conversation, and I felt really satisfied at the end. And then I took some action steps to become a part of a group that is in this conversation, crossing the aisle between the ranchers and the pro-wolf, pro-nature people. So that's the second point of crossing the aisle. The new feminine leader is going to have the skills to cross the aisle. And that involves having a regulated nervous system. That involves having the skills to do the work inside to come to a place of neutral. Because the first thing I did when I got on the phone with this person was I didn't yell and scream. I just shared, I'm calling you because I saw this thing. It made me super sad. I was crying. I want to share my vulnerability. And he's like, you're not alone. Many of us sobbed when we heard that. So excellent empathy. And then I said, my question to you is, can you help me wrap my head around what is happening? Wow. Bam. The question is the bridge. And so I'm going to teach more of that inside of Rise 2.0 in 2025's leadership, new feminine leadership camp. I just called it a camp. I don't know if it's a camp, but we're going to teach that inside of Rise, the skills that you need to have to now be bridge builders. That's what's important. So we've done a lot of the healing work, and we're going to get the gold on the healing work. And now we need to take that healing work out into the world. And thankfully, we'll have the US election behind us. And so I'm going to leave with this sentence, and I hope you write it down. And that is from the Bhagavad Gita: be the same in both victory and defeat. So whichever side you're on, no matter what, hold space and be the same. And know that there are probably 50% of people who feel the opposite and are going to be going through whatever they're going through. And we're going to make it through, because we're not going to add a match onto a pile of gasoline and wood and blow it up. We instead are going to build bridges. And so let's gather all the positive energy that we have generated here and our collective yes, and beam it out. May all beings benefit from the merits of our efforts. Thank you. Thank you.